to Philippians chapter 4. Let's go back there this morning. Philippians chapter 4. Chapter 4 and verse number 8. We'll just read the verse again. Well, we were here a few weeks ago, so we're going to talk about honesty this morning. Finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report. If there be any virtue and if there be any praise, think on these things. So let's talk about honesty. Honest things. Let's talk about that this morning for a few minutes. Honest things. You consider yourself to be honest? Most people do. I think pretty much everybody considers themselves to be honest. If you ask someone, hey, are you honest? Can I trust you? What do they say? You ever had anybody say, no, don't roll them dice, buddy. You can't trust me. You ever hear anybody say that? No, of course not. Matter of fact, I hear a whole lot the other way. Oh, yes, sir. You ain't going to find a more honest man than me. My handshake, my word is my bond, and so on and so forth. Dad always warned us. He said, two things. If a guy claims to you to be honest, or that he is not a liar, he said, you better watch that guy because he's a dishonest liar is what he is. Every time. And I ain't seen it fail. Honest things. True honesty is getting harder and harder to find, wouldn't you say? It's getting harder to recognize, too. We were talking about this yesterday, her and I. We went to the Bluff and we talk a lot. 26 years. It ain't all been talking, but we do a lot of talking. Talking's important. You know? Yes, sir. Anyway, we were talking about, once again, how the whole purpose of AI, which that's a whole rabbit hole we're not going to go down, but how the effect of AI being present now in our social media and in media in general is making it to where people aren't going to be able to distinguish between it and reality. So reality and it are all going to get categorized as fake. And so it isn't that people will believe a lie. It's just so that they won't believe the truth. That's really the deception in this whole, it's the grooming process is what's happening. And this is another thing that we have been, the same principle can be applied to this matter of honesty. There are people who are honest. There are still left in this world people who are honest. And then there's people who claim to be and they're not. People don't claim to not be, but then they are. You're either honest or you're not. And it's pretty obvious. I mean, it's one of those things you can't really keep hidden that you're dishonest. I mean, being in the trades, people's reputation precedes them as to whether they're honest or not. You pay some guy a couple grand to show up and start working, and he shows up and makes sure some material gets delivered, and then he never comes back, but he took your money. You're going to tell people, you're going to refer him to other people? No, you're going to be like, don't hire this guy. Why? He's dishonest. But it's getting hard to recognize honesty because of all of the dishonesty that there is. And it's all the same as the AI example. It's all getting lumped together, and the baby's getting thrown out with the bathwater. Everybody seems to have the same general idea of what it means to be honest, if you ask someone. But everyone also seems to have their own self-established invisible line in the sand that they're willing to cross over into not outright lies, but not outright dishonesty, but this blurred space of their own definition. There's people who are honest in some things and dishonest in others. And they get to decide whether they believe they're being dishonest about certain things or not. You know, the old saying that it's never right to do wrong to do right. can apply here. But there are people who very much adhere to that line of thought, that it is okay, to tell a lie for the greater good, or to, that kind of thing. You understand what I'm talking about? So honesty in our day is hard to find because it's been left up to each individual's discretion or lack thereof to decide what that means for them. Kind of like things that are true, we talked about a couple weeks ago. Truth and honesty are synonymous in many, many ways. And that's what they've done with truth. They have thrown out so many ideas and hypotheses and theories and, hypothetical situations and situational ethics to discredit what is true or right, that now it's made everybody, that's why everybody says that truth is subjective. My truth, your truth, his truth. What's right for me might not be right for you, and what's wrong for you might not be wrong for me. And there's the baseline has been erased. The foundation has been destroyed. And therefore, they're trying to build a house of honesty upon a house of lies. And it's shifting sand. It won't be still. It will long enough to get something built on it, but then the waters come and erode away from underneath it, and then it falls. So let's look at a few things about honesty, and I won't try to be too long. Honesty is an alliance with the truth. I'm not saying that it is in alliance. It is an alliance with the truth. Because truth is more than just a arbitrary thing. It's alive. Truth, and let me say this first. I literally wrote it down and then I didn't do it. I want to preface what I'm about to say with this matter right here. I'm not just talking about spiritual matters this morning. Okay? You can make the application at the end of all this to your spiritual life, and we will. But you can't be honest religiously and then be dishonest secularly, if you want to put it that way to identify the two lanes of life. You can't be spiritually honest and physically dishonest. And vice versa. If you're really honest with yourself, then you cannot be dishonest with God. And that's just how it works. It's kind of like that light switch back there. There's two positions. One, the lights come on. The other position, the lights go off. There is no in between. It's like gender. There's only two. You can pretend to be anything else, but it's still just only the two. And this is what you're either honest or you're not. And it's very binary. Okay? It's very ones and zeros here. And ask me how I know. Well, because there has been a lot of times in my life where my own conscience and my own mind and my own understanding and knowledge of the truth condemns my dishonesty. Well, who am I being dishonest with? Well, there's a whole line of people and things that I'm being, but you need to understand that if you only apply the principles of truth and honesty in religious matters, but you refuse to apply those things honestly in your own personal life, then your truth and honesty about religious matters will be stained or tainted by your dishonesty with yourself. And therefore, there's where self-righteousness is born. You have to be good in order for your conscience not to condemn you for your dishonesty. Because your conscience is always going to tell you, you're not being honest. That inner dialogue that no one else gets to hear does not lie. It does not lie to you. You can force it to tell you a lie. But then it's like there's this other one in there that says, no. You know what's the truth. You know when you're being dishonest, no matter what. And so, in order to make that voice be quiet in your mind, you have to be good. You have to do good. And so that's why this has to be applied in our actual daily physical life every day before it can have any bearing on our spiritual life. See, everybody acts like, it's like the question of what came first, the chicken or the egg. Well, there was a physical man that was condemned, that had to be awakened unto righteousness. You didn't awaken unto righteousness and not know what happened, and then you recognize, oh, who is this condemned man? No, you knew who you was as you were awakened unto righteousness when God called you to himself, and you were born again. And so in this matter here, I feel that, it's really important, this matter of honesty. It has to begin with you personally. It's not something that God can force you to do. You have a free will. You can choose to be dishonest until the day you die. And there will be a consequence. Many consequences, as a matter of fact. But this matter of honesty has to begin in your own self. You can have a mom and dad that enforce it until you can make your own choices, and then they can really put the pressure on you to make the right, honest choices. But at the end of the day, the best mom and dad and all the prayers in the world and all the tears and the pleading and begging won't force you to be honest with yourself, much less with anybody else or with God. So every day, this matter of honesty must be, it's like getting a glass of water first thing in the morning. It ought to be one of the first things that we, the paper that slides across the desk of your mind as you start the day is honest. What am I going to do today? How am I feeling today? How am I going to treat people today? How do I feel this morning? Am I right? Did I get up on the right side of the bed, or is my attitude wrong? How am I about to speak to my wife? How am I about to speak to my children? What am I, it sets the tone for the whole day. And if your inner dialogue can be condemning to you for your dishonesty, then your inner dialogue can also check that honesty thing off the list for the day and have it right too. Just depends on how much time you want to spend on it, right? For honesty to have a place to start and do work in your life, there's 3 things that you have to be truly honest with. Number 1 is yourself. Number 2 is the others around you. And number 3 is God. You say, well, why do I got to be honest with God? He knows me. I mean, I can try to be dishonest, but he knows the truth. No, you got to be honest with him. But I'm going to tell you something. You're grooming your mind how to be honest with God by whether you're honest with yourself and with those around you. And that's a fact. Because I know people who are reprobate that 100% believe that they are being honest with God and those around them. And everyone with one eye and half sense can look at them and say, oh, my soul, you are a mess. And the things you say don't even make sense in the English language. But in their mind, they are as honest as the Apostle Paul. And they truly believe it. Why? Because they have groomed their mind into believing their own dishonesty. You ever heard the saying about if you tell a lie long enough, everybody will believe it? You'll believe it yourself? There's something to that. There really is. And it's tied to this matter of calming the consciousness. That voice in your head saying, you're lying. You're being dishonest. You're not being honest with yourself. You're not being honest with yourself. And so you do all these good things to back up your dishonest approach to honesty until you believe your dishonesty is honest. It sounds like a tongue twister, don't it? You got to be honest with yourself. You got to be honest with others. And then you got to be honest with God. And being honest with yourself, honesty only exists in truth. I'm a big fan of honey. I like honey. But I'm kind of a honey snob anymore because if you start doing your research, you ain't buying honey. You're buying high fructose corn syrup. A lot of times they'll cut B-rated honey with corn syrup. And it kind of sort of tastes like honey, but it ain't really honey. And then there's honey that you can get that it's honey, but whoever did the extracting of the honey didn't do a clean job, and it's got stuff in it that you don't really want in it. And that's the way honesty is, too. Honesty with a little bit of bug parts in it, like the honey can have, it ain't really honest, is it? When they say 100% raw, unfiltered honey, then I pick up the bottle and look at it up in the light and expect to see some pieces of stuff in there. I mean, if I extracted it raw and unfiltered, it'd have some pieces of honeycomb in it, wouldn't it? Yeah. So when I look at it and it looks like clear, brand new 5W30 Mobil 1 motor oil, it kind of throws up a question mark in my mind as to whether they did in fact run it through a filter. Honesty's the same way. If you have one little bit of something in honesty that's dishonest, then it ain't honesty no more. You know? Look at, for example, Saul and what he did with Agag, and was it the Amorites? Is that what they were? Yeah. Amalekites. And God told him to kill everything. Men, women, children, animals, everything. Kill it. And he saved the king, and then he saved all the pretty women, and he saved all the best of the critters. And then he wanted Samuel to offer sacrifice to God to let him know that they had done what he had said. And Samuel told him to obey is better than sacrifice. You know, honesty is a sacrifice. It's going to cost you. Sometimes honesty implicates you and only you. So how committed are you to the integrity of honesty? How committed am I? Am I willing to self-deprecate in order to maintain the integrity of my honesty? Well, that's where that blurred line is for a lot of people. They'll leave out certain parts of an honest account of something because it'll set them up to look a little bit better. Man, I have been guilty of this, and you have too. You do it without even thinking that you're doing it until you think about what you said later and you think, oh my Lord. And then that inner voice starts gnawing at your head. Honesty only exists within the truth. It forces you into accepting reality. You know, there's no such thing as honest fantasy. It don't exist. It makes you have to accept reality. It's like the term, she's in denial. He's in denial. Denial of what? What do they mean when they say that? They're in denial of the truth. They're in denial of reality. A lot of times it's a big trauma response is denial. Because your mind don't want to accept that it's real. And I get that. You know, David laid on his face for 7 days begging God to save that little child. And it didn't happen. Did he mourn for another year laying in there starving to death? Nope. Why? Because he was honest. I mean, he, in that circumstance and in that situation, he absolutely owned why this was happening in the first place. He got real honest with God. And that's why when the Lord took that child and David rose up and they said, you should be in mourning. And he said, no. He washed his face and he ate something and he went to the house of God. And they said, what are you doing? And he said, it's just how it is. He can't come to me, but I can go to him. See, that's reality. And that's honesty about something that was all his fault. and yet he still owned it. Your lies that you tell yourself are the hardest ones to dispel, because to do so comes with it the accountability that the truth brings to your doorstep. This is why people create that blurred area in their honesty. Is because if you do away with that, then there's going to be some accountability on you, on me. Ain't it something how we have figured out how to dodge the bullets? I mean, some of them I'm real glad I've dodged because they weren't for me. And some of them had my name on them. And I kind of needed to get smacked by them. But I seen it coming and I ducked them. Well, it's coming back. It'll come back. What is it that you always told us? If you lie about something, you're going to have to tell another lie to support that lie. And then after that, then you have two lies that you have to figure out a way to support. And the next thing you know, you're wrapped up in the biggest ball of lies and you can't keep up with it. And then it finally runs over the top of you. And it certainly does. And that's why honesty is the best policy, as they say. If you just, I don't know, if you have pride in your life as a person, then confession is really good for your soul. The instant that you do something, I don't care if it gets on everybody's nerves, just tell on yourself. Yes. Because the next thing you know, you will be finding a way to be dishonest about this thing you've done because of your pride. That's how you kill pride. You humble yourself. And confession is humbling. Admission of fault is humbling. And you got to hate your pride more than you love yourself and your dignity. Or else pride will take over your life and it will rule your mind and your soul with dishonesty. That's what will happen. And people build this castle around themselves of dishonesty and guile and lies to the point where they're trapped in it. It's their prison and they can't never get out of it. I know people, I've had family that I remember that was their prison to the day they died. And if you tried to call them on any of their stuff, they'd get mad. Because it was too late. They weren't going to out themselves as having been dishonest all their life. So they just carried it with them to the grave. Well, that's a terrible way to go out, wouldn't you say? I would say. You got to be honest with yourself before you can be honest with others. Or else somebody's getting lied to, one way or the other. There's a reason folks don't ask for the honest opinion of others about themselves very often, because most of the time you'll get the truth, and it hurts, So we end up discrediting and devaluing not only the value of honesty in others, okay, especially if it is honest about us, but we also lose the conviction of the duty we have to be honest with them. Do you see what's happening here? Honesty is becoming a commodity we no longer need. Because one lie has led to another lie, and it's creating a situation that there's no answers for unless we throw out the problem to begin with. Case in point. Was marijuana illegal when you were growing up? It was illegal. It was illegal. It was illegal when I was growing up too. And think of the trillions of dollars that this nation has spent on the war on drugs. How many people have lost their lives because of the drug trade? How many lives have been destroyed because of drugs? Have they ever won the battle on the war on drugs? Nope, they sure haven't. And they realized that they weren't going to win. Too many people are making too much money off of it, and it ain't just the crooks. And so their deceitfulness and their dishonesty about their intention and their spending the money and everything else has led to this situation where it caught up with them. They were either going to have to really win the war on drugs, or what would be the other answer? Just get rid of the problem. This whole situation about drugs being illegal can be quickly resolved with no expense to just say, okay, well then they're just not illegal no more. Problem solved. Now you can go through what used to be the Payless Shoe Source in Poplar Bluff through the drive-through and buy marijuana through the drive-through with no card, just through the drive-through. Everywhere you go smells like a skunk now because everybody's sitting in their car on the parking lots of Walmart and everywhere else, smoking up. Has it helped our society? Has the drug epidemic and all of the effects of it went away? Not at all. But guess who's making money off the drug business now? Uncle Sam. But it was a win-win, right? Well, for somebody it was. But that's what I'm saying here. If I don't want you to be honest with me, because I don't want to hear what you have to say. I know what you're going to say, and I ain't going to hear it. You ain't got a right to say that to me. So I'm saying you don't have a right to be honest. Well, I don't have that power over you. I don't have that say in your life. And yet, what is the world? What is their philosophy about all this? You don't have a right to say what we're looking at. It's like the emperor having new clothes. That's what hate speech is circling around to be in. You see? So I don't want to hear what you have to say. You don't have a right to be honest with me. And because I'm such a good guy, this is wokeness now. This is what woke means, people. Because I'm also such a good person, I'm not going to impose my honesty on you either. So what have we done? We took honesty, balled it up, and chucked it out the window, and now we're all going to just pretend that everything that's dishonest that we know about each other is actually just us being honest. I knew a guy one time that was cheating on his wife, and he wouldn't admit it. And all the evidence was there, and it was just left for him to say, okay, I did it. So he did. And then he got mad when everybody didn't just say, well, don't do that no more. Because everything was still hitting the fan. And he said, well, look, man, what do you want from me? I was honest with you. And he expected it to all just go away because he finally was honest. Well, no. You finally were just honest with yourself. And now you were finally just honest with others. But that don't make the problem go away. And instead, we're going to just all pretend like the dishonesty that we see is our version of honesty. And we must respect that in each other because we're all so woke. We're above hurting other people's feelings now because we don't impose our version of honesty. I mean, look, I don't see it that way, but you're free to feel whatever you want to feel, and it's cool. It's cool. Do what you want. That's the world. Man, listen to people. That's how they talk. That's their mentality about everything. So, are we any closer to being honest? Or are we further away? You chucked it out the window driving down the road, and there it goes. And you just keep on going. And that's how much further away from this we're getting than getting closer. But you got to be honest with yourself, you got to be honest with others, and you got to be honest with God. By living life as I've just described to you, you effectively groom your mind to literally not have neither ability nor desire to be honest with God. If you don't need honesty, you sure don't need God. Some invisible, arbitrary idea that is going to tell me what to do. I've already figured out my way. Matter of fact, I've done ascended to another plane to where I don't even impose it on my fellow man. I live in peace with everyone because I just let them do whatever. I don't even try to impose my ideas on their minds. So why would I obey God? Why would I be honest with God? And that's where we're at. Then nobody wants to be, they don't have the ability nor the desire to be honest with God or have any concern or reverence or respect or regard for His truth. That's why the Bible is discarded, Because you have no concern for anyone else's honesty and their truth, and it's because you can't or you won't even truly be honest with yourself. This is the result. You'll never be able to be honest with God if you won't be honest with yourself. How are you going to... that's what Cain tried to do with his offering at the very beginning of all of this. God said, this is what I want. And he said, well, this is what I'll do. He counter-offered. And God did not accept his sacrifice. He rejected it. And if you come to God with anything other than honesty, it will be rejected. And what I mean is, He will reject your dishonesty. You come back and be honest, He'll not reject you. But He won't take you and your dishonesty. And that's how it is. So, like I said at the beginning, this don't just apply to religious matters. It leads into religious matters. But it applies to everyday life. In relationships, in families, in work, in business, in church. There has to be honesty here. I've seen it my entire life where there's dishonesty in church. And I'm not talking about from the pulpit. I'm talking about from pew to pew. And it ain't about from pew to pew about what's going on out there and then it's brought in here. No, it's about the stuff going on in church between the people in the pews. Double standards for kids in the church. It'll cut the throat of a church. Now, it just will. When your kid gets called down for running, but the preacher's kids don't get called down for running, you're lighting a match and throwing it in the trash can. That's what's happening. Why? Because it's not honest. It's not honesty. And there's a whole slew of other things too. Same way. Same thing. Favoritism, nepotism, they call it. All that kind of stuff is very destructive, and it has its roots in dishonesty. People who say that they adhere to a certain, what do they call it? The church covenant, so to speak, okay? Or the governance of the church, how the church is governed and ran. Church authority and that kind of thing. And yet no one will say a word because they don't want to make certain people mad, or else you're out. You're blacklisted. I've seen pastors throw people out of the church, call them out in the middle of service, and have the ushers, the bouncers, bounce them out the door in the middle of service because they stood up and said, what you're saying is not in the Bible, and that is not true. And it is heresy, the things they're saying. And they get called out on it by somebody in the church, they just get them and throw them out by the collar. There's reels on Facebook with them doing it. As if they're doing some great work for God. Some bold as a lion. No. That church runs on dishonesty because the whole place is afraid to confront the pastor about his heresy. Well, that ain't no church. That's a cult. That's a circus. Nothing is ever going to be done for God in dishonesty by dishonest people. And so this matter of whatsoever things are honest, think on these things. I wish that I could say that I was honest by nature, but I am not. The self-preservation is rooted very deeply in the smallest children. Once they put two and two together that you don't mess with that. And then they come and mess with that. And you say, hey, that's all you got to say. And they're going to throw it and run. That's what Millie's doing right now. It's hard not to laugh at it because it's kind of comical. But man, don't tell me that self-preservation is not somewhere in your DNA, somehow rooted in your mind. It's the idea that I'm doing something I shouldn't do. It is that little voice waking up in her little mind, her conscious, that spark that's in there, that's in every man that's born in this world. A conscious from the Lord that says, this is right and this is wrong. That's why your dishonest mind torments you. And so I wish I could say I was honest by nature, but I'm not. I have to be honest on purpose, and so do you. And so that's why that you must think on honest things. There's a scripture, and I wish I'd have looked it up, but it references to those who lie and love to make a lie. Well, there's lying and there's making a lie. You're thinking on dishonest things if you are making a lie. You're investing time. You're playing the long game of the lie if you love to make a lie. God hates a lying tongue. It's dishonest. And so I would venture to say that God hates dishonesty as much as he hates lying, because they're kind of one and the same. So try to think on honest things. Think about how you can be honest. And I ain't talking about just telling the truth. I mean, honesty is a virtue, and virtue means strength. And there's ways that you can be stronger as a person by being honest. And where does it begin? First, yourself. Then you'll be honest with others. Then you can truly be honest with God. Amen. That's all I got.